Good afternoon. My name is Vinny Montez. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Today we're here to talk about the coordinated law enforcement efforts regarding 9 search warrants that were executed today. At about 7 o'clock this morning, operations began around the Denver metro area, focusing on addresses in unincorporated Boulder County, unincorporated Adams County, Wheat Ridge, Johnstown, and Federal Heights. Since the initial warrants were executed this morning at about 7 a.m., there was one additional warrant that was written and is either in the process of being executed or has been executed in Johnstown. It was an additional storage locker. The 9 locations have all had investigators out there throughout the day collecting evidence and processing the scene. At one location at 3500 West 64th Avenue, unincorporated Adams County, they did encounter, once the scene was secure and civilians were not present, an improvised explosive device that has been rendered safe by the Adams County Sheriff's Office, and there was no threat to the public during that rendering. We also want to say that throughout the day, there was no other threats to the public. Those sites were secured, and investigators were able to go in once those sites were secured and complete their processing. And in some locations, that's still going on right now. Several arrests were also made outside what the district attorney is going to talk about. Arrests for collateral things such as illegal weapons, outstanding felony warrants, felons in possessions of weapons, and some drug violations. There's been new evidence that's been discovered today that will help with new leads in the investigation. And this case did originate with the Boulder County Sheriff's Office and then moved over to the District Attorney's Office as a grand jury investigation. No injuries were reported today at any of the sites, neither for civilians or law enforcement. There were traffic impositions this morning where, for example, in Commerce City, they had to block off an area near 104th and Chambers, which did create some traffic delays. We apologize for that inconvenience, but we also want to say we appreciate the public's understanding. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement was not involved in today's operation. We want to make that clear. And we also want to reiterate that in closing, for my part here, we just want to thank all the law enforcement agencies that helped us today with this overall investigation and the execution of all these search warrants. There's a tremendous amount, as you've seen in the press releases that we've sent out today. And it's important that we thank our partners because we couldn't have been able to do it without their help. So that'll conclude my part of it, and I'm going to turn it over to the district attorney.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Doherty. I'm the district attorney for the 20th Judicial District, which is Boulder County. I appreciate you being here today. Today, a massive crime ring has been brought to a screeching halt. They were responsible for 190 open cases. 25 different jurisdictions were victimized by their actions. Nearly $1 million of loss and damage. So this indictment of 6 individuals, to say this is the culmination of a tremendous amount of work by law enforcement would be accurate. But to also say that a crime ring that was harming dozens and dozens of people throughout the metropolitan area, up and down the Front Range, has been brought to a stop is also true. And I want to pick up where he just left off. It's a tremendous effort by law enforcement to make this happen. The coordination, the collaboration, the work with not just the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, which took the lead from the beginning and did outstanding work, and the members of our team with my district attorney's office, but many, many other law enforcement agencies and district attorney's offices helped with this investigation and helped us gather enough evidence to present it to the grand jury. And I'll share with you that we have grand jurors in this jurisdiction who serve on the grand jury for 1 year, and they hear evidence in different cases and decide whether we need subpoenas to go out and whether we have sufficient evidence to bring an indictment or bring charges against individuals. Those grand jurors are community members who serve in anonymity, but they should know, if they're watching today, that this is the culmination of their efforts of coming down to this building week after week after week and putting in the time of listening to all the law enforcement officers and detectives who did really outstanding work here. Their work, their time, their dedication is why we have the indictment that was just released to the media, charging 6 different individuals with various criminal offenses. 4 of those individuals are charged with what's called COCA, Colorado Organized Crime Act offenses. Each one of those carry a sentence of up to 24 years in state prison, not including the other crimes that are charged in the indictments. So for coca alone, they could be serving up to 24 years in state prison, plus all the additional offenses. 2 of the individuals in the indictment are charged with a number of offenses related to individual thefts that they were involved in, but not coca. But taking a step back, just to give you an idea of what this crime ring was doing to victims up and down the Front Range, they were breaking into cars and then using stolen cars to commit other crimes. And in some of these cars, they found garage door openers, and they would use those garage door openers to then break into people's garages. Once they broke into the garages, they would steal bikes, high-end bikes, from the garages, and then break down those bikes, meet with another member of the crime ring, load them into a van, and have them transported to Mexico. This was a significant and serious crime ring. They also stole credit cards. Then they would use those credit cards and go to retail stores to get gift cards. So we had them on burglaries, car thefts, bike thefts, stolen credit cards, and also the distribution of methamphetamine. So really the greatest hits of every possible criminal offense was involved in this indictment that you see today. It really is the culmination of a tremendous amount of work by law enforcement. I can't stress that enough. The prosecutors on this case from my office and law enforcement have been working on this case for quite some time. That's how we ended up with 190 open cases being addressed in the charges you see in the indictment today. And we will ensure that anybody involved in this crime ring is held fully responsible. I also appreciate, and I'm sure you got a sense of it from the spokesperson from the sheriff's office, the tremendous effort that went into the coordinated execution of search warrants today. So all of those search warrants that have been approved by a judge in advance, and then detectives and officers put a tremendous amount of time and effort into executing those search warrants safely. And as you heard, no civilians and no officers were injured in the execution of any of those search warrants. And we're still evaluating all the evidence that was seized in connection with those search warrants. And last but not least, before we take questions, I want to stress, as we do every time we talk to the media, these individuals are innocent unless and until proven guilty. The charges against them are merely allegations at this point. I want to ensure that they have a fair trial here in Boulder County when the time comes. And we're happy to take any questions you have.
How many victims are we talking about here?
The question is, how many victims are we talking about? And I believe the number was 55 victims.
And what kind of damages did they suffer?
So let me take her question
Sure.
too, and go ahead.
Can you say something about the one suspect who was not taken into custody? Was that suspect apprehended at all at a scene today? Never made contact with that person? Any more details?
So I'm going to let him answer that question. To answer your question, property damage from cars that were being broken into, homes that were being broken into, also losses due to financial losses. So between the financial losses from the thefts and the property damage, as you see in the press release, we came close to $1 million in losses and damage caused by this crime ring. And I'm going to turn over to him to answer your question, because he's going to have the most up-to-date information on that particular individual.
So as the last time that I was updated and briefed by the Incident Command, Kimberly is the only one that is still outstanding right now for the group that we're going after today. So that person is not in custody.
Can you tell us if you, all of these 6, are they everyone you think is involved in this crime ring, or do you think there are others involved?
Well, I think so speaking from the law enforcement side, you never know all the players in an investigation that's this big. So today there's been new information that's been gathered by our investigators and our partners. All that information has to be sifted through, gathered, and then things have to start connecting the dots all over again because it's a whole new blanket full of information. So I can't answer that question definitively, but more than likely other people could be identified.
Were these suspects related?
I can't answer that question directly because I don't know the answer to it.
What would be the overall message you'd like the public to take away from this, Mr. Gordy?
I feel like here's where I say crime doesn't pay, because that's certainly true, and there are gonna be serious consequences for these criminal offenses. But what I would also stress, 2 things. What I want the public to know is often when a bike is stolen, a home is broken into, a car is broken into and stolen, often it's the work of a crime ring, more often than not. And that takes a tremendous amount of effort, resources, and dedication by law enforcement. And in Boulder County and in law enforcement agencies up and down the Front Range, on this case, they gave this case their all, and that's why we're here today. Because they kept pulling on the string of each one of these different thefts, break-ins, the different occurrences that you see laid out in the indictment until they realize all the connections between the different members of the crime rings and those 190 cases they're responsible for. So I'm really grateful to law enforcement. And then the other piece of it I would say is I'm grateful to live and work in a community and to lead a DA's office in a community where law enforcement has that kind of approach. Because without that effort, without that commitment, we would not be standing here today. There'd be 55 victims without justice and without any answers.
When you say if those 55 victims and those 190 cases, those aren't all Boulder County cases, correct? Just talk a little bit about how this started in Boulder and then how you were able to connect it to other cases across the metro.
So I don't think I could speak intelligently about all those specific cases. I think we'd have to maybe have a detective follow up to give you that more specific information. The cases did originate out of Boulder County, not all of them, in speaking with a detective today, but I don't feel like I could speak to certainty on that, so I don't feel comfortable doing that. What I can tell you, just to go back to your question for just a second, is what we want the public to know also exactly what the district attorney iterated about all the effort that's gone through, but I'd just to also acknowledge I'm not a detective any longer, but our detectives have spent a long time in our agency putting a lot of hard work connecting the dots in order to get to this point. And I just want the public to know that that commitment from our agency, specifically the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, is always going to be there. And our detectives are working really hard to bring this case to its final resolution and turn over a good, solid case so the DA can prosecute.
What was the evidence that the grand jury heard? Was it forensic? Was it eyewitness? How did you guys finally determine these were your suspects?
So, a couple things. First, to your question, these offenses were not all confined to Boulder County. Unlike others who may think of their business or their life within certain county lines, crime rings often just operate in certain areas, and this crime ring operated up and down the Front Range throughout the metro area. And the evidence that was presented to the grand jury included evidence around cell phone analysis, security video, eyewitness accounts, information about stolen vehicles and where they ended up. It was a pretty comprehensive investigation thanks to the law enforcement investigators, and that's the information, evidence, and testimony that our prosecutors presented in the grand jury. And you'll see that all laid out in the indictment that you now have.
When did the first of these cases, these losses start happening, and when did the investigators start connecting the dots, as you said?
So I would have to look back at the indictment, which you now have, to give you the start date of the very first offense.
And then, I don't know if are there any more details on the IED discovered today? I know you said it wasn't a threat to the public, but was that something you were expecting in any one of these searches?
I have been in law enforcement for over 27 years. You never know what you're going to find on any case that you go to, especially when you're executing search warrants at a residence or a business. Investigators were prepared for it today. They were able to identify what they thought was a suspected improvised explosive device. As soon as that happened, they immediately stopped the operation as far as the search was concerned. They backed out. Adams County Bond Squad was called, and they rendered the IED safe.
Vinny, was that a booby trap specifically set up for when law enforcement might come in? Or?
There's nothing that indicates that it was at this time. I've been given no information that it was that type of thing. I think simply they discovered what they believed was an IED. They identified it, backed out, and then they were able to deal with it properly.
We have time. I'm sorry. We have time for one more question, I'm told.
I was just curious, were they targeting certain vehicles? Were they looking for any type of bike specifically? And do you feel like other people who think that, hey, my case could be connected to this should reach out? Or?
So now that the indictments have been released with more information inside of them, if people feel like they have information that might be related to the case, we always encourage our people, bcsotips at bouldercounty.gov, to email our detectives and our investigators so they can get that information. Even if people have an inkling, maybe something doesn't seem right, maybe something happened that was similar that I couldn't explain at a certain point in time, please give us a call. Our investigators are always happy to answer that question, try to figure it out. And simply having worked cases like this before, you never know when that little piece of information just might help make the case even a little bit better.
Will you be releasing their photos and everything?
So more than likely we will be. That hasn't been done yet, but I'll be following up with the DA's office here shortly to see where we're at. There's just been a lot of moving parts today, which I'm sure you understand.
And did you recover any stolen property?
Absolutely today, yes.
Thank you.
So 2 final things I'll just stress. I really want to emphasize, if someone's had their bike stolen, car broken into, or home broken into, This is a good example, a prime example of the reason why you should report it to law enforcement, because law enforcement will follow up. This district attorney's office will follow up, will always fight for justice and fight for victims. And by having these reports, investigators are able to make connections, not just in Boulder County, but beyond, and bring crime rings to justice. And then I'll stress what I said at the end of my initial remarks. The defendants are innocent unless and until proven guilty, and the charges are merely allegations. And I really do appreciate all of you coming out here this afternoon, so thank you for being here.
Thank you.